The one other big thing I wanted to hit on while we're talking about just like very basic stuff for indies who are looking to get into it, one of the biggest things I would tell people is do not spend a dime. Don't spend a dime on your first project. You know, certainly while you're learning, don't upgrade your GitHub. Don't buy Game Maker Professional. Don't think about don't get wrapped up in like, oh my god, I've hung out with people who get on these projects and they're like, we need to start a corporation and we need to file ourselves as employees and we need to go meet at Steak and Shake for 4 hours tomorrow, and all this shit that just stands between you and progress, and it sucks up money and it sucks up time, and that's another great way to drive yourself absolutely insane. And I mean, I guess some of the other stuff you do, like the recording and stuff, there's probably a lot of stuff that you don't really have the luxury of like keeping it free. But
No.
you you can't get an open source guitar, but you can use Unity free until your studio makes like $200,000 in a year's time or something. Like it's extremely generous for like the most popular game engine there is.
That's incredible. We are starting on a side note to give the audio engineering world a little bit of credit here. We are starting to see some more programs crop up and software licenses that mimic that model. I think maybe they're becoming inspired by that because they want to see new life enter that arena. Because my gosh, the buy-in point for the professional audio engineer stuff is steep. And if you want young kids to get involved in it, it's a tough thing to swing. So I'm glad to see that because that makes sense what you're talking about there. Not until you make $200,000, you know, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thing to do.
Oh yeah, and it never used to be this way, but some aspects of this have always been in place. Like you know, the kind of work I've done and how long I've done it. I have never had a copy of Photoshop of my own. I don't know how to use Photoshop. I use GIMP for everything. I've never touched 3D Studio Max. I would love to, but I started this when I was 14, and I was lucky we had internet. Like, that's the honest truth.
Yeah.
Like, I was lucky my house had a computer and electricity sometimes, and so I found myself learning to do HTML in, like, Notepad and JavaScript in Notepad, and I would use Audacity to record stuff and Blender to model stuff, GIMP, Game Maker, the most basic version that would do like PC games. Every bit of it was absolutely free, and I didn't pirate things. I didn't do anything. Like, it was all either open source or just freeware. And
that's awesome.
I think there's something to that because I've always believed in the idea of sort of bootstrapping. Like, start with something you can do for yourself, make a couple of bucks off it, spend that couple of bucks on a license for something small or whatever you need. Like, you'll run into something like, I need this sound effect and this guy needs $5 for it. Spend the money that way. Don't drop the money on, the giant the Mac like power station or whatever the hell. Like,
yes.
Like, find ways to do this cheap and consider that like a barrier for entry. If you can't do it that way, like, it's like in golf, you don't want to have like a $10,000 bag and a $10 game. You should think about your game development that way as well.
It makes sense, man. I won't tell a kid to go buy a $1,300 guitar the year he decides to play. Don't do that. You're just going to have a nice thing collecting dust, probably.
Yeah, when you get far enough, you will come across no shortage of opportunities to spend money and write checks and start corporations and stuff. Like, it's a hassle. And I talk to people all the time who still don't do it right. Like, oh, we have a company. Like, really? Where did you file? Oh, it's not official or anything. It's like, okay. But go ahead and take that approach while you're just getting started and you have no idea where this is going to go from here. And the big reason I say that is not because of, like, I don't know if you can afford it or if you can't or if you should do it or if you're going to stick with it, but think of it as it stands between you, again, and your audience. And don't let anything come between you and your audience. Get your work done, get your stuff seen. That's your only chance.